All right, everybody. Just going to do a quick rundown of your exam here, and you can have this to use as you study. Test is same format, 50 questions, um, same kind of questions that you've been getting on the last couple exams. So let's just go start going through some of the stuff here. Okay, so broken up the study guide into sections based on the chapters, and you can be pretty sure that the test is going to be structured that way too. Okay, so we started out back in, I think, chapter 8, talking about perfect competition. And these questions are going to be, there's going to be some answers that are very similar, and then there's going to be the one that is the most correct. So let's see here. First one, what happens if a firm charges above equilibrium price in a perfectly competitive market? Okay, so you just want to kind of go back to that graph and remember that the market price is set in the market. So remember, firms are price takers in that sense. If they try to oversell, if they try to overprice this thing, they have zero demand above the market price. And hence, what happens is they basically have no sales whatsoever. Okay, so there's going to be then like a bunch of questions in terms of like equations, but this is really, really basic stuff. So when you see like total revenue equation, you know that it's only possibly two variables that could be used. It's price times the quantity sold. Okay. Now, when we think about total revenue, remember we were also thinking about marginal revenue, and that was going to be really important for us when we were trying to determine the output that the firm should sell in all of our market structures. So marginal revenue is simply just the change or additional revenue that's gained or lost by selling one or not selling one more unit. Okay, so it's just looking at if I sell one more unit, how much would I additionally get? Now, in perfect competition, remember the price is set in the market, so they're always going to get the same additional amount. So really, when we think about marginal revenue and price and also average revenue, we know that they were all the same in the case of the perfectly competitive firm. Okay, so what does the marginal revenue curve look like? It looks exactly like the demand curve, because if it's made up of price and quantity, additional one more unit sold, additional amount gained in terms of that price. Okay, so it is a horizontal marginal revenue curve. Now that's contrary to the other firm structures like an imperfect competition. Okay, let's see here. What does the firm want to maximize the difference of? Well, they definitely want to maximize profits, so they are trying to gain more revenue over cost. Okay, that's what they're trying to get the most of there. Okay, what is true about a profit maximized competitive firm with respect to price, marginal revenue, and marginal cost? Okay, so when a firm in this perfect competition structure, they decide their output, remember it's marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Okay, that's all going to be equal to then price, marginal revenue, marginal cost. They're all going to be equal there. Okay, that's why the perfect competitive solution is seen as such a good solution because they're profit maximizing, but they're also price takers. They're taking the market price and they've minimized cost so that they're able to provide as much output to their market as they can given their structure. Okay, so then I told you you're not going to have to do any drawing of graphs, but you will have to do exactly what I was saying for the last few weeks and identify some of those points. Okay, so what is that output? Remember, you're looking for that magic spot where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. In the case of the perfectly competitive firm, it's right there at that intersection. It'll be kind of clear as day. And remember, you can always go back and use your notes and you can look at the text and you can use the PowerPoint. So it should all be there. Okay, what does a firm in a perfectly competitive market have? Let's see, have no control over price? Well, why? Why don't they have? I think it's supposed to say why. And that's because they are price takers. They sell homogenous products. They sell basically what everybody else sells, identical, right? And everybody has perfect information. All the assumptions that we talked about are in operation. So that's all I'm really going to get there. They might be like one or two that are duplicates, but that's really just the kind of the core stuff I'm trying to get at. Okay, so then we spent a lot of time on imperfect competition. Okay, so this is basically just relaxing one assumption, and that they're now price makers. So monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and monopoly, they're all price makers. Okay, so let's see, do firms need to limit competition to exercise price control? they have a limited competitive situation. It is limited in the sense that they have some market power. So they have to be able to have some type of limited competition to be able to have price power. That's what allows them to have kind of some power over their customer. Okay. In imperfectly competitive markets, is it true that a single firm will have some control over its price? Yes, that is absolutely the case. Remember, because they have some type of power over their customer. You know, if it was monopolistic competition, they had goodwill and brand. If it's a monopoly, they are the market. And if it's an oligopoly, they're kind of like really, really powerful and they don't have very much competition. So they're able to set the prices at whatever level is good for their profit maximization. Okay, what are some results of imperfectly competitive markets? So this is trying to get you to see that it's very, very different relative to a perfectly competitive world. Okay, so what do we see here? We see that they reduce the amount of output that they would relative to perfect competition. They charge higher prices than they would in perfect competition. And in fact, they also do not operate at a least cost scenario. Okay, so they're always going to kind of be a little less efficient, but they can be because they're pricing up, and so they're able to make up any loss of efficiency. They don't need to have perfect efficiency because basically they choose where they want to operate. That's the best situation for them. What are characteristics of monopolies? Okay, well, they are the market. There is a single firm. They also choose output where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, but they price up to the demand curve. So remember, they follow it up to the demand curve. Okay, so it's a single firm with price power, and they are the market. The demand curve is their market. Oligopolies, it's a few firms, and they have price power and they compete with strategy and they try to kind of hedge their bets of how the other player is going to operate, but they're very, very large relative to the entire industry. They make up most of the industry. Okay. So these are the kind of things you're looking for. And there's actually, remember, there was a chart that went through each of these characteristics. That's absolutely what these questions are going to test you on. Like, that's very, very textbook. Okay, let's see, market power. Okay, that's a very simple idea here. Market power is price power. If they can have some control over their price, then they have some market power. That's all that's really trying to get out there. Okay, what type of businesses are considered, let's see, not imperfectly competitive? Okay, so remember, if we had perfect competition, it was like farmers and people that, you know, sell very, very similar products, okay, very, very identical products. In imperfect competition, we'll see that products are less than identical. And we would see this like in, you know, let's say like a clothing stores or things like that, where they have to use brand and goodwill and marketing to try to convince you. Now, these will probably be examples that are very similar to that one that's in the chart. Okay, so I think we talked about a few of them, but that would probably be what you want to refer to there. Just know that if they're selling a product that is very, very much standardized, then you know that's more of a perfect competition business rather than if they had something that had some brand or some marketing associated with it. Okay, when substitutes exist, firms in imperfectly competitive perfectly competitive markets have more or less ability to set price. Okay, so when there's choice, okay, when customers have an ability to choose across lots of different possible ways to get whatever they're needing, okay, then that actually lessens the firm's ability to have price power, right? They have less power because they know that, rather, customers know that they can go other places. Okay, so when there's more substitutes, they have less of an ability to set the price as much as they want to. There's more possibilities for those customers. Firms in imperfectly competitive markets are price makers or takers in their industries. In imperfect competition, they are price makers. We know that one. Okay, which of the firm structures we studied have price power? Okay, so anything that's not perfect competition. Like, that's what you just got to know there. Okay, if it is a perfectly competitive market, they don't have price power. If it's all the other three, they do. Okay. Okay, the demand curve for the monopoly reflects what? Okay, that is absolutely the market. The demand curve is the market. Okay, the slope is downward sloping, just like a demand curve that we saw in chapter 3 with our regular supply and demand graphs. Okay, the only difference between that one and this one is that they are the supply curve. So in fact, their marginal cost curve is the supply curve. Okay, so it's very similar looking. It's just that kind of slightly different shape. Okay, now let's see. I told you this is what you needed to be able to solve, be able to look at a diagram. So it's going to be one of those graphs. Find the price and output for a monopolistic firm. Okay, so this is, if you have trouble with this one, I said go back to that PowerPoint. There is a couple of slides there that are just like, this is where the price is and this is where they choose. But if you can remember, they are going to choose output, the level of output where MR equals MC, okay? And then they're going to take that amount and they're going to follow it up to the demand curve, and you're going to look over at that price axis, and that's the price they will charge. So no, there's probably going to be a few of those. You're going to have to be able to look and say, hey, can I see where to choose output and where to choose the price? In the long run, what might the monopoly be able to earn? What kind of profits and why? Okay, so because they are a monopoly, they could earn above normal profits. Okay, so they can actually have above average profits. They can have more than just that kind of break even point to them. And the reason why is because they're the only seller of the product. Okay, they have no competition really. Okay, compared to competitive industries, what will a monopoly do to price and output? Boy, got some typos there. They will charge a higher price and they will restrict output. Okay, that's what they're going to do compared to that perfect competition. Okay, what allows a natural monopoly to exist with respect to costs? Okay, so this is the idea that, remember, they had extremely high costs. And so because of those extremely high costs, uh, it's kind of thought that, wow, if we had more people trying to do this, they would all have very high costs, and the price to produce just a small amount would be very, very high. So a natural monopoly has economies of scale. Okay, so it means that they're to the point where they have so much potential output because they have to be able to make it, that allows them to have that kind of lower cost. They have all the people possible. Remember, think about it as like a utility company, okay? And they have some economies of scale there. Okay, here's one example. Airline industry is an example of what type of market structure. Okay, so this one kind of goes along the line of like an oligopoly here, okay? There's not a lot of these firms. They sell similar things, but ultimately, okay, there's just a few of these giant firms. With respect to type of products, homogeneous or heterogeneous, what would characterize oligopolies? Okay, so they have heterogeneous products here, okay? They're not exactly identical, okay? That's all that's saying. If 4 firms have nearly 90% of market share, what kind of market structure would this be? Okay, that means that there's 4 firms that have almost all of the sales. Okay, that's an oligopoly for sure. Okay, this one we didn't actually talk too much about, but I'm going to have you just go straight into the textbook for this one. What are the 5 forces in Porter's model? Okay, so I'll come back to that when the test is over, because it is an important one for us to think about. But I do want you to go look at it. They're 5. You're going to see them listed there. It's in the chapter on oligopoly. It's going to be very, very clear. And it helps us to determine the forces of market forces. Okay, so it kind of helps us understand where competition is coming from. Okay, we're almost done. So that was monopoly, oligopoly, and that was perfect competition. Here is the last big piece. We spent a lot of time on this, so clearly there's going to be some questions here. Okay, so perfect competition, remember there's lots of firms, but they sell identical products. Monopolistic competition is there's lots of firms, but they sell less than identical products. Okay, so they have some differentiation. That's the key word you're going to be looking for there. Okay, so I'm going to have you kind of start to go in there and look at, okay, what kind of businesses would be monopolistically competitive. But remember, it's going to be related to that chart that we saw, okay, where it gives it different characteristics and then it gives you business examples. Okay, so characteristics, okay. This is going to be that chart again. And then what it is it's lots of firms, they use advertising, they sell less than identical products, they have a piece of the market, all of those things that we've been talking about. Okay, why do monopolistically competitive firms have power over price? Because they effectively have a piece of the market. They have a monopoly over a small amount through differentiation. Pros of advertising. Okay, we spent some time on this one too. It's like, you know, we know that it gives us information about the product. It tells us where to get it. Okay, it gives us helpful ideas of why we want it. In other words, okay. Boy, I think we're gonna have to listen to my clock even on this recording. Okay, so these horizontal and vertical. I told you that one. If you're in that lecture that day, okay, I want you to go into that PowerPoint and look at those definitions. They're right there, okay, because they're kind of tricky, but if you look at them once, you'll probably get it, okay? All right, remember this one's actually pretty easy here. What is a commitment device? It's like Costco or a gym. It's something that says, hey, you're going to keep coming back to this simply because you paid to have this ability to come here. Okay, so something that keeps you going, or those little cards that you get for your Subway sandwiches and things like that. Okay, behavioral economics. We talked a little bit about this when we were talking about advertising, but it's really coming from psychology. Okay, substitutes in monopolistically competitive markets. Okay, what might they play? All right, well, it's going to limit the ability of a firm to be able to have as much price power. Okay, so when there's more of these things out there, it makes it easier for customers to find other options. Okay, so understand that in the short run, monopolistically competitive firms act like monopolies. They do. Okay, so that is the case. They have that ability to price up more and restrict output and potentially, here it is, there's the key here, make above average profits. Remember all those examples I was giving you? It's like somebody comes up with a new idea. Hold on, here we go. Classic. Okay, there we go. Okay, so remember I was saying like, okay, we've got this new business idea, they have some goodwill, they're using advertising, people keep coming to them. Well, okay, so initially they're going to be able to make some good profits, but as more firms enter into this market, that's when that market power gets separated out and they have less of ability to make that super above average profits. Okay, how price and average total cost tell us whether a firm is making profit or not. Okay, so I really, really harped on this one. Remember, it's just those three scenarios, okay? If the price is higher than the cost per unit, they make a profit. If the price is below the cost per unit, they make a loss. And if the price is equal to the cost per unit, they break even, okay? That's what you need to know. And you have to be able to kind of look at a chart, a graph of that and say, hey, do I see them making profits, making a loss, or breaking even? Okay, so if you need help with that, go back into that lecture on monopolistic competition that day, and that should help you out. Remember, if you do need to access those lectures, you have to be able to go into your Zoom cloud recordings. You then need to click the session that you want to listen to, click the eyeball, that shows you the password, copy it, click the link, paste it, and you'll be able to watch it. Okay, and lastly, there's going to be a few of these, just like the monopoly, same graph here. Okay, where's profit maximizing level of output, and where's the price they're going to charge? Okay, so that's it. This is a really, really potentially an easy exam. You had to spend a little bit of time with it. You can do really well on this one if you want to. I think you all can. So good luck. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'll help you in any way I possibly can, and I will make sure your exam is ready to go for you on Wednesday. And then we will come back in the next couple weeks and talk about some topics in microeconomics. Okay, have a good day.